Welcome back. We are on day 24 of this war, and today produced the single most consequential diplomatic moment since the bombs started falling on February 28th. And it is not a peace deal. It is not a ceasefire. It is something far more complicated and far more revealing about the actual state of this conflict. Today, Trump said talks are happening. Iran said no talks are happening. And both of them may be telling a version of the truth simultaneously. Let me take you through exactly what occurred, fact by fact, claim by claim, because the gap between what was said and what actually happened contains everything you need to understand about where this war is heading. Trump wrote in all capitals on Truth Social on Monday morning that the U.S. and Iran have had very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of hostilities in the Middle East over the last 2 days, and announced he had instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. NBC News. 5 days. Trump gave Iran a 5-day reprieve from strikes on its power plants. He then told reporters he had major points of agreement with Iran, almost all points, in his words. He described 15 specific points of agreement. He said Iran had committed to halting uranium enrichment, handing over existing stockpiles, and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Now let's apply the fact check. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf posted on social media that no negotiations have been held with the U.S., calling Trump's claims fake news used to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the U.S. and Israel are trapped. CNN, the Parliament Speaker, not a junior official. The man that an Israeli official told Axios that Trump's own envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had been in contact with, Ghalibaf himself publicly denied that any negotiations had taken place. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghei also denied any discussions had taken place, saying messages have been received from some friendly countries regarding the U.S.'s request for negotiations to end the war. NPR read that last sentence with full attention. Messages received through friendly countries regarding the U.S.'s request for negotiations. Iran is confirming that America asked for talks through intermediaries. Iran is denying that those intermediary messages constituted negotiations. Trump is calling those intermediary messages very good and productive conversations. The dispute is not about whether communication happened. The dispute is about what to call it. A source with knowledge of the discussions said there did not appear to have been any direct talks yet between Ghalibaf and Trump's team. Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey passed messages between the U.S. and Iran on Sunday and were attempting to set up a call on Monday between Ghalibaf and Trump's team. ABC News, Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey. 3 countries passing messages between Washington and Tehran on Sunday. That is not nothing. That is the architecture of a potential diplomatic backchannel. But it is categorically different from what Trump described as in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations. Passing messages through 3 intermediary countries is the first step toward talks. It is not talks themselves. And describing message passing as very good and productive conversations is a characterization that the evidence does not fully support. Trump did something else in this announcement that deserves specific scrutiny because it reveals exactly why Iran called it market manipulation. The international oil benchmark Brent crude fell more than 10% on Monday, trading at just over $100 per barrel as of 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, down $18 from last week's peak. CNN Trump announced very good and productive conversations before U.S. markets opened on Monday morning. Oil prices dropped 10% on the announcement. 10% of Brent crude's trading value moved in a single day based on a claim that the other party to those claimed conversations publicly denied. Iran's parliament speaker noticed this immediately. He said explicitly that the claims were designed to manipulate financial and oil markets. Trump dismissed Iran's denial by telling reporters that some Iranian officials are in confusion because their communication infrastructure has been destabilized. That is Trump explaining away Iran's denial of his claims by arguing that Iran cannot communicate properly because America bombed its communications. That is a remarkable argument for why a denial should not be believed. Now, let's look at what was actually happening on the ground while this diplomatic claim and counterclaim was playing out in public, because the military picture on day 24 tells a different story than a war-approaching settlement. Several strong explosions and air alert sirens rang out in Bahrain, according to a journalist working for AFP, the first to be heard in the Gulf since U.S. President Trump announced a 5-day pause in strikes on Iranian power plants. NBC News explosions in Bahrain within hours of Trump's peace announcement. Israel said it would continue striking Iran and Lebanon even as the U.S. considers a ceasefire. Netanyahu told reporters that Trump told him there's a chance to leverage battlefield gains into an agreement that realizes the war's objectives. CNN Israel continuing to strike Iran while the U.S. announces a 5-day pause on energy infrastructure. America and Israel are running separate military timelines within the same joint operation. Trump paused power plant strikes. Israel is conducting dozens of fighter jet sorties over Tehran as Trump speaks. That coordination gap is not a minor administrative detail. It is a fundamental crack in the alliance strategy. The IEA chief, Fatih Birol, warned Monday that the global economy faces a major threat from the war's disruption to oil and gas flows, saying no country will be immune to the effects of this crisis if it continues to go in this direction. He added that at least 40 energy facilities across 9 countries have also been severely damaged in the conflict. Birol said the current situation was worse than the combined oil crises of 1973 and 1979, which together lost 10 million barrels per day. NBC News worse than 1973 and 1979 combined. The IEA chief is not a political commentator. He is the head of the organization that manages the world's emergency oil reserves and coordinates energy security for 32 member nations. When he says this is worse than 1973 and 1979 combined, he is describing an energy emergency of generational magnitude. 40 energy facilities across 9 countries severely damaged. That is, the physical infrastructure of the global energy system being systematically destroyed while diplomats pass messages through Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey. Transiting through the Strait of Hormuz is completely off the charts for the rest of 2026 due to the uncertainty and security situation in the region, said Peter Sand, chief analyst at Zeneta, an ocean and air freight data firm. He told CNN that vessels are likely to steer clear of other major choke points, including Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Suez Canal. Maybe for another year, we are going to see full rerouting of global networks around the Cape of Good Hope instead of going through the shortcut, the Suez Canal. Al Jazeera. The entire year of 2026, complete rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope. That means every container ship, every tanker, every cargo vessel that would normally transit through Suez and Hormuz is adding 12 to 14 days to every voyage. That translates directly into higher costs for every manufactured product, every food import, every consumer good on every shelf in every country, not for weeks. For a year, according to the chief analyst of the world's leading ocean freight data firm. U.S. officials told CBS News that current American intelligence assessments show there are at least a dozen Iranian mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has demonstrated an ability to keep hitting back, albeit at a slower pace, despite 24 days of U.S.-Israeli strikes. CNN. At least a dozen confirmed mines in the Strait. American intelligence, not Iranian state media, not a think tank estimate. Current American intelligence assessments, those mines do not disappear. Because Trump announced a 5-day pause in power plant strikes, they remain in the water. Every ship captain considering the Hormuz route is reading that same intelligence assessment. Iran's response to the 5-day pause was not to open the strait or to confirm talks. Iran warned Monday it will strike electrical plants and desalination facilities across the Middle East if Trump follows through on his threat to bomb power stations in Iran. The threat from Tehran puts at risk both electricity supplies and water in the Gulf states, particularly as the desert nations co-locate their power stations with desalination plants crucial for supplying drinking water. NBC News desalination plants. In a desert region where desalination provides the primary source of drinking water for millions of people across Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain. Iran is threatening to destroy the drinking water supply of the Gulf states if its power plants are bombed. That is not a military threat. That is a humanitarian threat of extraordinary scale. And it is the opening position of the country, Trump said, has already agreed to almost all 15 points. Iran's foreign ministry said there are no talks between Tehran and Washington, and that Trump's statements were part of a push to reduce energy prices. Since the start of the war, messages have been sent to Tehran by some mediators, but Iran's clear response has been that it will continue its defense until the required level of deterrence is achieved. No negotiations have taken place, and none are underway. With this kind of psychological warfare, neither the Strait of Hormuz will return to pre-war conditions, nor will calm return to energy markets. NBC News, psychological warfare. That is Iran's official characterization of Trump's announcement. Not a misunderstanding, not a difference in definitions. Iran is formally accusing Trump of conducting psychological warfare against energy markets by announcing talks that Iran says did not happen. And the oil market moved 10% on that announcement, regardless of whether it was true. A rights group says the war has killed more than 3,200 people in Iran. CNN, 3,200 people killed inside Iran in 24 days. That is a verified figure from an independent rights organization. It is not the Iranian government's figure. It is not an American figure. It is an independent count, and it is the highest verified civilian death toll figure produced so far in this conflict. Here is where the facts leave us on day 24. Trump announced very good and productive conversations with Iran and a 5-day pause in power plant strikes. Iran's parliament speaker denied any negotiations, Iran's foreign ministry confirmed receiving messages through friendly countries, but denied those were negotiations. An Israeli official told Axios that Witkoff and Kushner had been in contact with Ghalibaf, who then publicly denied any talks. Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey passed messages between the two sides on Sunday. That is the diplomatic reality. Brent crude dropped 10% on Trump's announcement. The IEA chief said the situation is worse than 1973 and 1979 combined. At least 40 energy facilities across 9 countries are severely damaged. Hormuz transit is off the charts for the rest of 2026. A dozen confirmed American intelligence mines in the strait. Israel is continuing to strike Iran while Trump announces a pause. Bahrain heard explosions within hours of the announcement. Iran threatened to destroy Gulf desalination plants if its power plants are bombed. More than 3,200 people are dead inside Iran. And 5 days have begun. Whatever happens at the end of those 5 days determines what this war looks like next. We will keep verifying every claim. We will keep tracking every hour of those 5 days. Stay with us.